Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hi, Bill. Thank you, Joseph, for that introduction and for your great leadership of the Harkin Institute at Drake University. I also want to add my thanks to all the foundations and corporations that have supported these summits and that have been playing a leadership role in disability employment globally. I also appreciate the stewardship of our planning committee, led by the Association of University Centers on Disabilities, Andy Imperato, Humanity and Inclusion with Micah Bevington, I don't know where everyone's sitting here, and of course the World Bank. So I'd like to ask you all to clap your hands and thank all the volunteers who have put this all together, all the volunteers. Now, first of all, I want to say that one of the things I've loved about these summits is my ability to interact with you and so many of my friends and to engage in a lot of conversations. But as you can tell, I have a terrible cold and I'm about to lose my voice anyway. So if you want to talk to me, you better hurry up. But if I'm not visiting with you a lot, that's only, and maybe I'll be better tomorrow, I hope. But I'm just afraid I'm going to lose my voice here. Secondly, I just wanted to also add that we had a late addition to our program tomorrow after His Royal Highness Prince Al Hussein gives our luncheon speech tomorrow. We will have an address by the Mayor of New York City, the Honorable Bill de Blasio, the Mayor of New York City, to talk about what they are doing at their at-work program in New York. And I know Victor Calisi is probably here. I haven't seen him yet this morning, and who is in charge of that in New York City. So your boss will be here tomorrow afternoon, Victor. And so I wanted to let you all know that you're going to hear two great presentations tomorrow afternoon before we adjourn. I know that Joseph introduced my wife, Ruth, who's on the board of the Harkin Institute, but Ruth also serves on the board of directors and has for some time of the only school in the Bahamas for children with developmental and intellectual disabilities. It's called Every Child Counts. Kids come from islands all over just to go to school there. And again, their whole focus is getting kids early in life that have developmental intellectual disabilities and get them prepared for employment, competitive type integrated employment, so they can lead self-sufficient economic lives. So it's the only school in the Bahamas. So I just want to pay tribute again to Ruth for her leading that effort in our neighbors to the southeast. Last year, I challenged our attendees to dream big and to give some real thought to what it would take to double the labor force participation rates for people with disabilities around the globe within the next 10 years. I was inspired to set this audacious goal by leaders in the private sector, like Randy Lewis, formerly with Walgreens. You heard from him last year, and also Jenny LeFleury at Microsoft, whom you also heard from last year, who have leveraged their personal and family experience with disability to help their companies step up and do things that had never been tried before. So that, my friends, is our charge for the next 2 days. To challenge each other, to rethink what is possible, and to surface new approaches that can completely change the disability employment landscape globally. We have the attention of business leaders. We have the attention of governments, funders, and civil society. We also have momentum. We have the momentum coming out of the United Kingdom's and Kenya's Global Disability Summit, held in London in July of this year, co-hosted with the International Disability Alliance, where hundreds of governments, companies, and organizations signed a charter for change, pledging to, quote, open up routes to economic empowerment and financial inclusion so that people with disabilities can enjoy decent work and achieve financial independence, end quote. We were there, Joseph Jones was there representing the Harkin Summit at this conference, and when I read these words about their charter, about achieving financial independence, I was reminded that in the Americans with Disabilities Act, passed 28 years ago, that's one of the 4 goals of the Americans with Disabilities Act, called economic self-sufficiency. So you can see we're right in line with what that Charter for Change that was signed in London this year. We also have momentum coming out of a new report released a couple of weeks ago from Accenture and the American Association of People with Disabilities. The report was entitled, Getting to Equal, the Disability Inclusion Advantage. It looked at the disability practices and financial performance of 140 companies that participated in a benchmark study called the Disability Equality Index. And this was a study over a 4-year period of time. Accenture found that the top 45 companies who have scored the best in their leadership on disability, employment, and inclusion had, on average, over a 4-year period, listen to this, 28% higher revenue, double the net income, and 30% higher economic profit margins than the other companies who were evaluated under that same Disability Equality Index. Accenture's analysis also revealed that the U.S. GDP could get a boost of up to $25 billion if more persons with disabilities join the labor force. So now we have a good hard case study done over a 4-year period of time comparing 140 companies, the top quartile, well, almost the top quartile of those that did the best in terms of hiring and inclusion, also made the most money. So again, for businesses, it's bottom line. This is not something to do just out of the goodness of your heart, although we welcome that too, but it is to look at just hard-line business facts, that your business will do better by hiring persons with disabilities, and of course, examples are replete globally in that area. We also have the momentum coming out of the effort of countries around the world to implement the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We have momentum coming out of the Essel Foundation's Zero Project. I lost sight of Martin Essel, but Martin and Michael are here. They just landed. Took them 35 hours to get here from Vienna. Now I'm going to the Zero Project in Vienna in February. I sure hope it doesn't take me 35 hours to get there. But thank you very much. The Zero Project from the Essel Foundation, seeking to reduce disparities between people with disabilities and the general population. So we've gotten a lot of momentum from what they have done. And we've gotten a lot of momentum out of the efforts to implement the UN's Sustainable Development Goals to end poverty, address inequality, and spur economic growth. But we won't achieve the UN's overarching goals if we're not able to unleash the labor force potential of the more than 1 billion people with disabilities around the world. I was excited to see that the hundreds who gathered in London in July, about which I just spoke, rallied around the theme, quote, "Now is the time," end quote. Well, I couldn't agree more. So let's all roll up our sleeves over the next 2 days to work together to build an agenda for disability employment that will produce powerful results around the world. I can tell by looking at who's here and knowing so many of you, we have a quality group of individuals here, both from private sectors, foundations, NGOs, advocates. To me, this room represents, I think, the compilation, the gathering of both the actual implementation of policies and also the intellectual birthing of how we do these things. So over the next 2 days, with all of the brain power that's in this room and the force of what you've all done individually, I think we can really come up with something good. So I'm just honored that you're all here for today and tomorrow. Now, my colleagues at the Harkin Institute will write up a proceedings document that summarizes the recommendations and commitments coming out of our 5 breakout sessions, which cover everything from the changing nature of work, implementing the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, improving workplace culture so that workers with disabilities feel welcome and can advance and thrive, addressing some of the unique issues for women with disabilities, and of course one workshop which I've called a Big Idea workshop that will be developed at this summit. We will take this important agenda to the next Harkin Summit in Paris on April 8th and 9th of next year, hosted by Humanity and Inclusion, and again to Tokyo in 2020 at a global summit hosted by the Nippon Foundation. The opportunity to make a sea change in disability employment is before us. So let's seize this opportunity and let's literally change the world with and for people with disabilities. I know the people in this room, and I know that you can do it. I know of your leadership qualities. I know what you've done in the past. And I tell you, there's a force in this room to really be reckoned with. So I thank you for being here, and I look forward to our deliberations over the next couple of days.